Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Fariniars, and I'm the Executive Director of the Greenwich Alliance for Education. And I am very excited today to have all of you with us to speak on our AVID Success Career Panel. And I know you'll have lots of interesting questions from our students, and your varied backgrounds are going to be very interesting to them to learn about today. So now I'm going to shut off my video and my mic and hand it over to Ken Elkhorn to moderate.
Good afternoon. On behalf of both AVID ninth grade classes, thank you to our panelists for volunteering your time to share your words of wisdom and expertise in life and career. And also to the Greenwich Alliance for Education for organizing this. It's a great opportunity for our students, and it's something we value a great deal. So what I would like to do is ask each of our four panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about, we've already read your biographical information, but if you could tell us a little bit more about how you came to the career that you have, and what your current thoughts are about it, and your first before you get any questions, what are some things that you would want to share with ninth graders based on your life experience? Okay, so we can start with Ms. Nelson.
All right, thank you very much. So my name is Demetria Nelson. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services for the town of Greenwich. I went to Brian McMahon High School in Norrgard, Connecticut. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I won't repeat the bio that you've already read, but one thing that wasn't in the bio, I actually started out at the University of Arizona. I had a lot of family out west, wanted to go out west, had research. There was a great, high jump coach that was out there, the best in the country. So initially went there and then ended up transferring over a winter break to Boston University, where I received a partial scholarship, athletic scholarship to attend there. And my undergraduate degree is in psychology, went on to organizational psychology, initially had the intention of going into clinical psychology. But during my undergrad time, I was able to connect with an individual that became my mentor who focused in on organizational psychology and decided that was my next step, and went to Teachers College, Columbia University, and studied organizational psychology. And my first job out of graduate school was actually where I had my internship. So I was lucky enough to work there for a while, and then started to work for Stanford Hospital as a training specialist and doing soft skills training. And as I was working at Stanford Hospital, many of the people that were coming in and attending some of the soft skills training, I realized that a lot of their underlying issues and concerns were related to larger psychosocial stressors, things that were happening at home where they needed support in that way. So at that time, it was, close to and around, 9/11, and it was really, in being introspective and thinking about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Yes, I know I had gone to graduate school already and was probably already settled in a career, but decided for me, working as a therapist would be the best transition. So then I went back to school and studied social work. And because I had that background in administrative experience, I really focused in on the clinical, and then eventually, of course, now I'm back into an administrative role. So that's sort of my career journey. And my first job out of social work school was also where I had my internship at New York Presbyterian Hospital.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nelson.
You're welcome.
Mr. Friedman.
Yes, hi. My name is Jacques Friedman. I grew up in Norwich, Connecticut, which is about 100 miles up the coast, closer to the casinos, Foxwood and Mohegan-Sun, which weren't there when I was in high school. In high school, I really liked math, and I worked a little bit as a computer programmer in the office at the high school. So I knew I wanted to do something related to that. I went to Brown University in Providence, which is about an hour from my house. I wish we were further away. When I was there, I actually entered to be an engineer. And even before my first day of class, I decided to switch. I wanted to do computer science and not engineering. And then after my first semester, I realized some of these classes in computer science weren't interesting to me. So I switched again to applied math, which is kind of like, there's two different types of math. There's what we call pure math, where it's very theoretical and you kind of your head's in the clouds and you're proving theorems and things and not really dealing with numbers or the real world. And applied math is like using computers and math methods and techniques to solve problems in engineering or physics or biology. And it involved programming, which I liked. And so I did applied math. I wanted to go to graduate school because I thought that these professors had these cushy jobs. They didn't work very hard. And I could get a PhD and then get one of these cushy jobs. So I went to graduate school at the University of Washington in Seattle, which isn't where I really wanted to go, but I did poorly on the exam, the math exam. There's like a special like GRE for math that I didn't prepare for, and so it limited my options of where I could go to graduate school. So then I went to a University of Washington. That was for a PhD, which is kind of like an indeterminate amount of time that could take 4 years, 7 years, 12 years. So after 2 years, I was good at the classes, then I realized I didn't really have the attention span to actually finish my PhD, which could have taken another 3-4 years. And there's no real guarantee that all this work you do on the research actually gives you a PhD. So it's like, it takes a kind of special kind of person to like have that drive to do that. And I realized I didn't want to do that. So while I was in graduate school doing applied math, I happened to take 2 classes in the business school at University of Washington. And I thought, oh, this is pretty easy compared to what I was doing in math. And I randomly got a job. So I call this my accidental career. I randomly got a job at Goldman Sachs, which is one of these investment banks, doing portfolio management, using quantitative models and statistics, stuff that I kind of knew how to do. I didn't know anything about finance. I didn't know the difference between a stock and a bond, but I knew how to program. I knew how to solve problems because of my applied math. And I did that for a couple of years. And then the guys I worked with, or the guys that sat next to the group that sat next to the group I was in, decided to leave and start a hedge fund. And they asked me to join them. And a hedge fund is kind of just like another type of money management company where people could potentially make more money, and it's a little bit more exciting. At least it was back then. And so after 2 years at Goldman, we started this company, AQR, with 12 people. And that company actually had a lot of ups and downs, but ended up going from 12 people to about 1,000 people. And I ended up working there for 22 years, running, basically using these quantitative computer techniques to pick stocks for clients. And then after 22 years, I was kind of tired. I didn't want to do it anymore. And so for the last 2.5 years, I've been kind of working for myself, which involves like looking at investment ideas, helping up some friends, being an advisor for their companies, and looking for the next thing to do, which I'm not ready to do nothing. So, but I spend most of my current job is kind of like a little bit flexible compared to my previous job where I was, in a glass box, for 40 to 80 hours a week for a lot of years. But the point is like, I thought I was going to be an engineer, then a computer scientist, then I was going to be a professor. And then I randomly ended up in this Wall Street thing. And so you can't really predict where you end up. I feel like keep your options open, and as long as you do well in school, you'll have more options, I guess.
Thank you very much, Mr. Friedman. We'll be coming back to you later. Next, our very own Mr. Silkman, who I don't know if I've mentioned this to my class before, was a student of mine when he was a freshman. here at the high school. Welcome, Mr. Silkman. You're up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Silkman, a current teacher at Greenwich High School and fortunate former student of Mr. Alcorn. So you guys are in good hands. I know firsthand. Yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up in town, went to Greenwich High School, graduated in 2011, actually with Allie, who we're going to hear from next in my class, and had a wonderful experience here as a student and was given a ton of opportunities, to sort of test out my interests across my classes, and then also to get some really cool experiences in extracurricular activities. After high school, I was grateful to go to Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I had no idea what I wanted to study or what I wanted to do. I knew that I liked to read and write. I knew that I loved my history and government classes at the high school. And so being in the nation's capital felt like a really good fit. And I was grateful to receive a really substantial financial aid package that made Georgetown feasible for me and my family. And so I was able to go there and sort of test out a lot of different classes across like philosophy, theology, history, political science, social justice classes that really piqued my interest. I didn't declare a major until like 2 days before the deadline my sophomore year, and figured government was a good fit based on what I had done in my classes so far, and knew that I wanted to, at the very least, in whatever career I chose, I knew that I wanted to work in teams with other people, that I got a lot of energy and meaning out of relationships with others. And I knew that I also wanted to solve problems, and sort of like as someone who loved being a student, wanted to continue to learn and grow in whatever capacity I ended up, working in the real world. And so then after undergrad, I was a federal consultant for Deloitte in Roslyn, Virginia, just across the Potomac River, and I supported the Department of Defense in sort of figuring out solutions to their problems that they brought us on to lend a hand with. It was great. It was fast-paced. I was challenged. I met a lot of great people and worked in that team environment that I mentioned that I was looking for, and was able to hone my skills in meaningful ways. But I realized I would love to teach about government, maybe more than working for it. And so decided after talking with, after talking with my mom, who is a public school teacher in town, and talking to a lot of mentors from Greenwich High School who had been there for me when I was a student, and were sort of a sounding board as I was making this career transition. I moved back to Connecticut, where my family still was, and enrolled in a graduate teaching program at the University of Bridgeport to get my certification, to do an internship, and fulfill all of the requirements to get back into the classroom. And so I did my student teaching at Greenwich High School. I came back in 2018 and worked with Ms. Stack and Ms. Boyer, and got to see Mr. Kovac and Mr. Alcorn once again, and then was able to get a job here. I think if and I'll talk more about teaching, I'm sure, later on too, but sort of the big takeaway for me, sort of as I've continued to navigate this experience, is that I've sort of gone where my heart tells me is the right path along the way, and sort of through like real self-reflection and talking to people that I trust and admire, trying to work through next steps in my career. And I've kept my eyes and mind open to anything that seemed interesting or exciting or new. And so I was grateful to land the teaching job and to return to Greenwich High School to be with all of you all. It's been great for the last 3 years so far. So happy to be here and excited to continue to learn from you all too.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mr. Silkman. We're very happy to have you back. And our fourth panelist, Ms. Norrgard, another GHS graduate. Welcome, Ms. Norrgard.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm also a former student of Mr. Kovac. Shout out to one of my favorite classes back in the day. But yeah, like Dan, I too really had no idea what I wanted to do coming out of high school and what I wanted to major in. I decided on business. I figured that was going to be a safe bet. Like there was, plenty of opportunity in business. You could always do something with a business degree. So I studied marketing and management at Tulane University, but did not ever end up using my degree. I mentioned in my bio that I worked in the fashion industry for a few years, I had wanted to be on the business side of that industry, but sort of ended up more on the like design and product development side, which I didn't really love. And after a few years, really wanted to make a change. And although that career path was not for me, I'm totally happy to talk about it with anyone who is interested in it. But at that point, kind of, again, had no real idea where I wanted to go. So was trying out a bunch of different things online, taking different courses, talking to, networking with whoever I could just to learn more about different opportunities. And eventually found out about coding, and I had never done anything related to coding before, but did some courses online, really had fun doing it, really liked it. And learned about a coding boot camp in New York City from a friend. And I should also mention that, like, at that point, I didn't necessarily want to go back to school to get a graduate degree or anything like that. That would be, very time consuming and very expensive. So a coding boot camp was very ideal for me in the sense that it was 4 months long. It was full time. So I had to leave my job to go back to school. But it was 4 months. And they really help guide you after that. They have excellent career counselors that help place you in jobs after that. So was very confident in choosing that as a potential next step for myself. And after that, they helped me find a job at Wayfair, where I am a software engineer, working on the customer service part of the website. So if you've had to return a pillow or had an issue with the shipping address for your couch or something, you've likely touched something that I've worked on, which is also really rewarding for me, that I feel like I'm doing work now that is immediately impactful to our customers and to our customer service agents. And it's been a really fun job that feels like, kind of solving puzzles every day. And excited to talk more about that with you guys, answer any questions. But one big takeaway that I'll leave you guys with is, like, there's so many free online resources nowadays for you all to explore that I would highly encourage you to take advantage of, to just kind of help figure out what it is that you're interested in if you don't really have a direction to go in.
Great, thank you, Ms. Norrgard. So I'll start with you for the next question, because I kind of piggybacks on what you were just talking about, what you like about your job. So the question is, I think this question is actually from Genesis. What's the best part of your job? What do you get most excited about?
I get most excited about probably, it's really, really rewarding for me when we have, there's lots of bugs in code. I don't know how much you guys have experienced coding at all. I have heard that Greenwich High School has some courses in that now, but you can spend like so long trying to figure out what is breaking on your website and diving into the code and really having no idea where things are going wrong. And when you follow a path and figure out what is breaking and you can fix it, and then, like I said before, like that's immediately impacting the end user. So figuring those things out is really exciting for me. I often compare it to solving puzzles, and I'm a very analytically minded person, so that's exciting for me. So bug squashing, I think, is really fun, and just building new things, like building a new part of a website, I think is so cool to be able to like show your friends and show your family, like, look at what I built today. Like, our designers gave me this rendering of something that they wanted the website to look like, and I just made it happen, and you can interact with it. And I just find it really, really fun and rewarding to be able to show off my work that way.
Great. Ms. Nelson, what do you love about your job?
Okay, I love a lot about my job, but one of the main things that I love is being able to advocate for those in need, identifying new areas in need that aren't being addressed by our department, and then advocating for funds either through the town or funds that have been allocated to the town for certain reasons. I'll give you an example of right now. We have the American Rescue Plan Act, and there are funds that have been allocated for different initiatives, and we're advocating for funds to be directed towards addressing mental health issues, connecting people sooner rather than later to the resources that they need, also expanding the level of education, to our town employees so they can better meet the needs of our residents. And also, there's various projects that we're dealing with, but being able to formally act in that advocacy role and being able to be part of the planning and the execution of it. It's like, I love the just richness of my job.
Thank you. And Mr. Friedman, now you can either talk about your work when you were, on Wall Street in an office, or your current work as a private investor. What do you enjoy?
So, well, the cool thing about my job, my career, my 24-year career, where I basically was using computers and statistics and math to try to figure out how to pick stocks. I liked it because it was a way of applying stuff that, applying skills that people always say, oh, math, why am I learning this math? I can't ever use this in the real world. But computing skills and problem solving skills are, is a really great application I was doing in school. I mean, at work, which is, it's like a big puzzle, like, stocks move in a certain way. Can I figure out, we were doing research to figure out, okay, what kind of data can we use to forecast whether stocks are going to go up or down, and actually go out and trade based on this. I mean, at the peak, my group was managing $100 billion of stocks in one area where we're trying to beat the market, and then another area, another $200 billion long and short. So there's a lot of money at stake, and it was challenging and pretty rewarding, because I think one of the things that I didn't like about graduate school is that you do research, and in my particular field in applied math, you write a thesis, and then you're a professor, and then you have to write these papers, and there may be 20 people in the entire world that care about your paper, and it's a goal of just keep writing papers. Well, here you're actually using the same skills, but applying it in the real world. Similar to what Ali said, like, as a coder, I started out as a coder. It's like, figuring stuff out and then seeing the results is really satisfying. I mean, some people like to be in the clouds as a professor and never really have to have like real world. That's why they call it an ivory tower. You're just up there kind of doing your thing. But I liked it a lot. And what I like about my current position, which a lack of position, is I have more flexibility in my days. My kids are 16 and 13, and I have only a few more years left. So I can kind of like, my time is my own, which is pretty cool. But there's negatives of not having any structure either. So there are pluses and minuses of everything.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Silkman, what do you like about your job as a teacher?
I think for me, some of the things that I look forward to most every day when I come to Greenwich High School and get to be with you all as students, my 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, is the fact that like every day is different and new, even though we've got, our 51-minute classes on a rotating schedule. That's pretty predictable. But when students walk into the door, or even when teachers and staff walk into the door, we bring our lived experiences. There are current events taking place all the time that change a lesson the way that sort of I had initially thought it might go. And sort of students' needs and students' stories shape every interaction that you have with one another, and that teachers that I have with you all too. And so for me, that's super dynamic. The fact that there is sort of this evolving conversation that takes place over the course of the semester or the year, that we build these relationships and build trust. and that we can have sort of the like the important conversations about history and social studies and big challenges that our country and world are facing, but sort of in our context and responding to like the real needs of kids, right? And so that's most fulfilling for me. Like when a kid pops in, you know, at 7:20 and says, or sorry, 8:20 before school starts and says, "Hey, I saw this thing happen on the news. You know, can we talk about it today in class?" Or follows up, you know, their senior year after they get into college and runs by the room all excited because they're going to their top choice school, and sort of we celebrate that moment. And so I always have something like surprises to look forward to, because you all are really generous in sharing what's going on and what you need and what excites you. And then sort of that definitely brings me joy as well in my job.
Great, thank you very much. So I'll follow this pattern of introducing a new question to the last person to speak. So Mr. Silkman, you're still up. Now in AVID, we encourage students to advocate for themselves, to take risks, to stretch themselves. And we'd like to hear from the panelists about a time, whether in school or in pursuing their careers, where they took a risk, where they weren't really necessarily sure that things were going to work out, but they felt it was something important to do that was a test of their readiness, and something that was, you know, a positive challenge.
Sure. Yeah, I'll kick it off with, I think for me, the biggest risk that I took was, I guess, in my career change, when I moved from DC back to Connecticut and changed from sort of a corporate consulting environment to like living back home with my folks and going to school at night and having an internship at Greenwich High School where I had just left, you know, 7 years before. And so, you know, that for me, it was a lot of change. I was leaving behind the city that had become home and a lot of my friends from my undergrad experience who were still down there. And I was returning to a familiar context that had also changed a lot too. And then, you know, not to mention I'm entering a field that felt familiar because, you know, we all go to school and we feel like we understand what it means to teach. But I had no idea. And I think that for me was really daunting and a little scary at first, but sort of the risk or challenge that I encountered, you know, ended up being worthwhile. The perseverance piece was huge. And so even though I felt in my core that I wanted to do this and thought that it was right, there was always a little bit of doubt, like, will this risk pay off? Am I meant to be in front of a classroom? Will the kids respond to me? Is this gonna, you know, turn out the way that I had hoped for and that I was investing so much time in? And so, you know, for that year and a half or so that I was interning, student teaching, getting all of my graduate courses in line and fulfilling, you know, sort of the certification requirements as well. Yeah, I was super nervous. And sort of had to lean on people in my life to reassure me that, you know, trusting my gut is the thing to do, to provide, you know, insight and support, you know, based on their own experiences and sharing that with me. And so I think that's really how I was able to overcome that challenge or to meet the tall task that I had set forward for myself, was to really, you know, rely on the people in my life to lift me up. And then and thankful that, you know, things have definitely been trending in the right direction.
Cool, thank you. What you were just saying about a support system is really relevant to us, because in AVID, that's one thing we try to be to all our students. And so as the other panelists answer the question about, you know, a time when they took a risk, if you could also talk about ways that those human support systems in your lives were helpful. So next we have Ms. Norrgard.
Sure. So my story is going to be very similar to Dan's again. Biggest risk for me was for sure leaving my job and totally doing a 180 with my career. Kind of going from working in fashion to software engineering was quite a leap. And a lot of friends and family thought that was very crazy, but I felt good about what I was doing, and, you know, learning enough about the school that the boot camp that I was about to attend. I felt very confident that that was going to set me up for success. And I just had really enjoyed every experience I had had with coding prior to that. So I, you know, followed my intuition, and thankfully that worked out for me. But, you know, I'm still, you know, facing challenges every day. Boot camp was not easy at all. They don't call it boot camp for nothing. My job is challenging every day. It was, you know, still a risk all the time, like whether or not I can handle projects that they throw at me, you know, especially because I came from such a non-traditional coding background. I didn't go to computer science, do a computer science major like a lot of people I worked with. So yeah, it's definitely challenging, but I think a healthy amount of challenge is necessary to kind of fuel you and keep you motivated. So I'm very thankful that it worked out for me, and I'm still loving what I'm doing. And so yeah, definitely don't hesitate to take those risks if you really feel that it's going to pan out for you in the end. I just always had a feeling that this is going to work out, and I really liked it while I was doing it. So don't let the challenge kind of hold you back.
Great, thank you. Ms. Nelson.
Yes, thank you. I'll briefly tell you two, one academic and one in work. And the work-related one is very similar to Dan and Allie. It seems like we have a lot of similarities in that way in terms of being, you know, transitioning careers. So, you know, I worked for a small management consulting firm, and we had, you know, really big clients, interesting clients. Had worked for Citibank and also Chemical Bank at the time when they were merging with Chase, and had worked for, you know, with Pfizer, and then, you know, had gone on to work with Stanford Hospital, and then, you know, having that epiphany and saying, oh, I want to change jobs. And like, but you're doing well and what you're doing, are you sure you want to do that? But then, you know, you have to look at what sort of drives you, what really will motivate you to continue to do your best, and what interests you. And for me, that was working in behavioral health, and really sort of the dynamic amongst, you know, my family, and, you know, speaking about support system, we all valued those type of those strengths and characteristics that were associated with that field, especially the primary one in terms of helping others. So for me, it was really something that I had to do, I think, to be, you know, happy, truly happy in my career. And then in terms of academic risk, when I was an undergraduate, by the time I got to my senior year, I pretty much finished up all of the requirements for my degree. But instead of just taking those simple, easy courses, I decided I just wanted to continue to challenge myself. So I developed, you know, I took a few independent studies, one in my minor. So I did it was called the psychoanalysis of Don Juan in Spanish. So I developed that, you know, course for myself. And then also I did an independent study in organizational psychology. And to me, you know, that helped me decide that at that moment that I did want to go on to grad school and study organizational psych before I made the transition to social work. So thank you.
Great. Great, thank you. Mr. Friedman.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if I rewind back to like where I think I took a lot of risk, I think in retrospect, it was more risk than I thought it was at the time. But so I started working when I was 23 at Goldman Sachs, which is a big kind of prestigious place apparently. And then when we decided to leave, I was kind of, you know, and start this new company. So you're gonna, instead of being a cog in a multi-thousand person company, this is 12 people, and the equity part, equities or stocks, that part of the business is your responsibility. You have to build it. You have to, you know, get the data vendors. You have to hire the data vendors. I have to write all the code. I have to do all the testing. I have to manage I have to basically do everything. And when you're the only person doing it, when you're sleeping, no work is getting done at the company. So I basically worked from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day for about 8 months without even a weekend break because it was like a startup. And my strategy was to fake it until I made it, but it was a risk. I went from a place where, startup, whether it's a tech startup or a finance startup, that's different than a company where you have a 401k and you have a path to if you do this, you become a vice president. If you have this, you become a managing director. It's kind of very formulaic versus the kind of the wild west of a new company. So I did this. So I started this new company when I was 26, and one of the senior partners at Goldman, when I left, he was kind of like upset. This group was all leaving together, and he's like, "You have no idea what type of risk you're taking right now." And I was like, I just was like, I don't know. I'm 26. I don't have any kids. Worst case is I'll just go back and get another job. But it was kind of risky to kind of get off that track, and a risk that maybe I can't actually do all these things that a team of 10 plus people was doing at my previous job that I was going to have to do all by myself. And I made a lot of mistakes and had some real oh shit moments, about making a mistake. I just traded something that I shouldn't have. That's going to cost my clients money, but you just keep going. And I can't honestly say I had much of a support system. My family, even to this day, have no idea what I did all those years. But I was with other guys. It was really a bunch of guys under the age of 30, all just kind of cranking, working really, really hard for a really long time. And we almost blew up multiple times and persevered. So it's sort of it was a lot. It was fun, but it was also a little bit scary. And you just wake up every day and just try and fail and try again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Friedman. What you were saying about that support group within, the company you were starting, your few partners, relates to what we do in AVID, where these students, they're together for all 4 years, and we practice and try to train them to really work together and have each other's back and help each other do the best they can. So, the support system doesn't necessarily have to be, outside people. And what you were just talking about, Mr. Friedman, we'll continue with you. And maybe you sort of touched on this. I'm trying to find where I actually worded this question. What would you do differently if you had the chance?
In the course of my career, I started out, being one of a small group of people, and then at the end, I was managing 50 people, and there was a lot of growing pains, a lot of mistakes I made through those years trying to figure out how to manage people. And honestly, the people that are managing me were also trying to figure out how to manage people. So there's a lot of, managing personalities is really difficult. I think probably being more proactive for asking for support or help from others. I kind of had this view, I'll just figure this out myself. That was a little bit to a fault at some times. Even we didn't really have an HR, human resources department for the first 6 or 7 years, so there wasn't really anyone to ask. But once there was a person like that, I think I could have done better managing these kids, because basically everyone that we've hired were these smart kids out of really good schools that had these great SAT scores and great grades and thought they were the best thing since sliced bread, and really difficult to manage. So I think being more proactive to value other people's perspectives. You have this perspective as okay, I'm a quant guy. I know a lot about math. I know about computers, and people who don't know anything about quant and computers, like, what do they know? But actually the human element matters. Like, there's a difference between IQ and EQ. EQ is like, emotional intelligence. And so learning and gaining emotional intelligence earlier in my career would have been helpful as I grew in the career, both internally and also, frankly, externally. I was also out there trying to raise money, talking to clients, and like being able to gauge how to relate to different types of people, explaining something which is very complicated. I think look around and value other people's opinions and try to use other resources. There's nothing to be ashamed of in that front.
Great, thank you. So more of that, work with people, listen to people, collaborate. So Mr. Silkman, we have about, just want to keep an eye on the clock. We've got about 7 or 8, about 10, a little less than 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Silkman.
Yeah, one of the things after college that I was thinking a lot about was the fact that one thing I would have done differently is taken advantage of individual one-on-one time with my professors that I had in school. I think I had like a missed opportunity, not only just because I'm a teacher now and they obviously are in a similar career, but I think I had a really cool opportunity that I should have taken advantage of to get to know them and some of their stories, kind of like this, right? To see sort of the chosen paths of the folks that are in our lives, when they're there in the moment. So definitely, I have one close relationship with a professor that I had established outside of class when I was at Georgetown, and that was wonderful. But I think looking back, there were definitely some other people too that I could have picked their brains a little bit, or like talked through what I was navigating and asked good questions to see if they had any sort of light to shed as well. And so as you all, I know you're in 9th grade, but as you continue going through Greenwich High School, of course, ask your teachers, I think, here for some of that insight and feedback, but also when you do go to college, right? Go to office hours and stick around after class and see if there are people on campus, wherever you are, who maybe can help you as you navigate your own sort of life decisions too.
Great, thank you. I think that applies to high school too. Go see your teachers, right? Okay, Ms. Norrgard.
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. I think for me, I would say to, if you do go to, like, when you're in college, you have a lot of class requirements that you have to fulfill for your major, but really take advantage of the extra credits that you have to, like for me, I was a business major and had to fulfill a certain amount of credits in the liberal arts college. And that could have been anything just to fulfill those credits. But I would really encourage you to take advantage of using those credits and putting them towards something that you just have like an inkling of an interest in, to see if, like me, I didn't actually end up using my business degree. I could have maybe taken a course here and there in computer science and found this career path for myself a lot earlier, or, explored other things that could have taken me down a different path. So yeah, I would encourage you all to do that.
Great, thank you. Ms. Nelson,
Right. So,
what
yes.
do you wish you'd done differently?
I think I wish I had asked for help. I was painfully independent, and just realizing that others are there to help you. They're there to support you, and you can utilize those networks that you've discussed. And as I've grown older and gained more experience, I lean into that and really look forward to having a support system and speaking with, not only like-minded people, but also people that have diverse and, complex ideas, and coming together and hearing more about that. I'll give you an example of when I went to social work school, the individuals that I interned with, 17 years ago, we still are in contact with one another, and we act as a resource for each other. So, it took me a while to learn to do that. So I'm telling you now, don't be afraid to ask for help and to engage with others, and, recognize your strengths and also pull from others.
Fantastic. And we come to our final question. We have about 5 minutes, and in case time gets cut off, I'll just thank everybody right now for your time and fantastic insights and stories. Everything you've been talking about is very relevant to our students. So the final question is, we'll start with Ms. Nelson. If you could talk to your 9th grade self, what would you say?
I would say it's not that bad, that things are going to change, or if things are going really well, you can build upon that. This is a moment in time that's part of the overall experience. Enjoy it, cherish it, and use it to your advantage. That's what I would say.
Mr. Friedman.
What I would say is, people tell you in high school, oh, these are the best years of your life. But I would say work really hard in high school so you have a lot of best years of your life, and they're not the best years of your life. I think I tell this to my nephews and stuff. It's like when you work hard, it'll just create more options for you in the future. And so you're not hopeless if you don't work hard. You just might have less options, or it might be harder to get to where you want to be. So I would say is if the work may pay off 20 years down the road or 10 years down the road, but it's well worth it. And your junior year of high school doesn't have to be the best year of your life. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Mr. Silkman.
I think if I were talking to my 9th grade self, I would say to take a minute and sort of drown out all the background noise, and sort of take stock of where I am and what I care about. And through that self-reflection, hopefully I'd be able to tell myself just to trust myself.
Excellent. And last but not least, Ms. Norrgard.
Yeah, I was gonna
your 9th grade self.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback on that idea a little bit. I would tell myself to not worry so much about doing what I think I'm supposed to do and what everyone else wants me to do. Definitely work really hard in school and do your best to get good grades, because that'll always be important. But this is your time to really figure out your interests and let that lead you and sort of follow your gut.
Great, thank you very much. That last observation about follow your interests, you've all been very generous in sharing your journeys. Nobody finished with the career they started with or they expected to when they were in college. So thank you again very much. If I could ask my students to give a nice round of applause for our panelists.
I just want to say thank you, everybody, again, for being part of the panel. And Ken, you're a fabulous moderator. You did a really outstanding job today. So thank you for everything. But I learned so much from everybody, and you spoke really true to our students and real. And thank you for your time today. It was great, really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.